Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to look at two uniforms that I talked about in Infinity War Part 2 when we had that sneak peeks for the update, and I said that these two characters, Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon, needed bigger guns because both characters were sorely struggling in the offensive department. Especially, they had some other issues, but it was especially the damage that was lacking. And their new uniforms have delivered in spades, and I've done a lot of playing and testing with them. I've gotten them both to Mythic, and I think I want to do a double review essentially of both uniforms today, showing you guys some gameplay, showing off the insane DPS and how much more powerful they are now, and giving you some build ideas and suggestions and how you can maximize your kind of output on these two new Guardians of the Galaxy. So we're going to start first with Star-Lord. His new uniform keeps a lot of the same kind of effects of the old one. It doesn't add any new effects in terms of buffs, in terms of crowd control, but it keeps the same number of iframes. He still has 4, which is fantastic. He has one on everything but 1, so 2, 3, 4, 5. But it just basically spikes his damage insanely. His damage goes from basically 0 to 100, and that's all you need to know about the uniform. There's a couple of additional changes. It does boost his 4-star passive from 30 to 40% ignore dodge, which is great. But he's just a much more usable character now. You can use him in kind of mid-level World Boss Ultimate, definitely use him in Shadowland. You could even use him as a replacement in Extreme Alliance Battle if you don't have a high-ranking Iron Man or Cable yet. He's just very, very good and so fun to play. And the unofficial coolest skill in the game having guy with I Have a Plan featuring Stephen Strange. As far as a really quick skill rotation goes for you guys, the character tips in the game are actually pretty useful. His 5th skill and his 3rd skill both have lingering damage, so for maximum DPS I would recommend something along the lines of 5 cancel 3 cancel 4. You want to let 4 play out till the end, and then use the 2nd skill for an additional iframe, and then either use 3 and then start back to 5 or do something else. But that doesn't always work. Despite having lots of damage, Star-Lord still doesn't have any ways of protecting himself. No invincibility, no immunity, no heal, just the iframes. So if you want to be safe, I recommend a different rotation altogether. His 5th skill, while the damage is much better now, still has the problem where he needs time to put on his headphones, so there's a definite gap. So I would say try not to use the 5th skill unless you see an opportunity to use it, which kind of makes his skill rotation fluid and dynamic. But a quick one that you can remember is something along the lines of 3, 4, 2, 3. And the reason why I start with the 3rd skill is that, and this is without canceling, so you want to play all of the skills out to get the maximum iframe duration. His 3rd skill has a 6-second cooldown, which is super low. It's like one of the lowest in the game. So with a 50% skill cooldown, card, and gear setup, this will be on 3-second timer. So every 3 seconds you can cast this with low attack speed. You've got about a second and a half of iframe time. So that means you only have to stall for an extra ½ second to 2 seconds with other skills, and you can just keep spamming and kind of chaining iframes and linking them. But keep in mind, with max attack speed, it'll be harder to do that. Also keep in mind that on top of the 30% guaranteed crit rate, he gives 10% crit damage. So if you're going to give him an obelisk or a CTP, you may be over the crit damage cap. I was with this obelisk, although it has way more than you'd expect from a typical obelisk or CTP. I'm over by 10%, but I just wanted to mention that to you guys. I don't think Star-Lord needs guard break immunity. I think a damage proc would be beautiful on him, but I also have an additional or kind of alternative build for him, and I have a suggestion for you guys. If you want to make your Star-Lord the biggest headache in Alliance Conquest and kind of PvP game modes, maybe King of the Hill or something like that, timeline battle, try to give him max dodge. I think an invincibility obelisk with dodge, and then dodge on his Uru, in addition to dodge on his uniform. If you could get a 75% dodge, like that's the cap, for Star-Lord, in addition to all his iframes, I think he would just be a nightmare, because he also gets an additional 10% from his uniform, so it's easier to cap that dodge rate with him, and I think he would just make people want to pull their hair out in PvP. But that was just an alternative suggestion that I had. I want to move on now to some gameplay with Star-Lord before we jump into Rocket Raccoon. It's actually insane how much more damage he deals with his new uniform compared to his old one. So we're going to do a pretty quick comparison here. Just to clarify here before we jump into the actual comparison, his new uniform grants him 20,700 energy attack, and surprisingly his old uniform, because I tweaked around some of the bonus options on the other uniforms, isn't that much lower. So his old uniform, much uglier by the way, despite being rare instead of mythic, is still having him over 20,000. He's at 20,400. So I did a little bit of tweaking. He has the 400 energy attack here, and on his new uniform I switched his energy attack. He's missing this one, but I intentionally switched this one so he would have less energy attack, so we can have a more fair comparison in terms of the actual energy damage stats. He's still going to be using his own leadership, so that number is going to go up, but we're going to compare new uniform mythic versus old uniform rare. Very similar energy attack stats, but the actual damage output is not even... It's completely incomparable. So we're basically going to test this out with a very simple test. How fast can Star-Lord kill one character? So it's very easy. As soon as one character dies, we're going to stop, and you're going to see what happens. And I actually could have gone a lot faster. So that was 5 seconds to kill War Machine. And I have Falcon at half-life. I actually could have gone faster than that. I didn't cast the 5th skill at first because I was worried about getting eye-framed or guard broken. But that is with the new uniform. That was 5 seconds. That was basically 2.5 skills. I did a little bit of the... I did the 4th skill and the 3rd skill kind of canceling. And then I did a little bit of the 2 and the 5. Now we're going to take the same character and we're going to take off his uniform and switch over to the giant kind of pink-red robe that he has. The uniform looks so ugly now, and we're gonna see how much faster he is. Slower with this one. We're gonna try to be aggressive as well, though. We don't want to slow down. Oh, you know what? I canceled that skill by accident. We actually don't have any more skill cooldowns, so we're gonna have to wait a second here. Can't cancel skills. So with very similar energy attack, you can see that the problem is multiple. The first problem is that he doesn't have as fluid a pattern of attack. He kind of moves himself around a lot with his different skills. With 4 and with 5, he moves forward, he moves back, so it's a lot harder to cancel his skills. And secondly, I wasn't able to get them alone. They had to be grouped, so they died at the same time, but it took 21 seconds. I think I could have been a few seconds faster if I'd gotten some of my skill cancelings off, especially having to stand through that 5th skill, but that's a huge difference. 5 seconds versus 20 seconds is not something that I could kind of fake with, you know, skill rotations. And the fact that his energy attack is almost exactly the same with these two uniforms, and yet he's, you know, 15 seconds faster is just bananas. So I cannot overstate how much more damage this brings Star-Lord. He was basically unusable, a D tier or F tier hero with this uniform. He's now been brought up to a solid B+, even possibly an A-, so it's fantastic. Moving on to Rocket Raccoon, the comparison for the gameplay is going to be a little bit more complicated, but really quickly I want to jump through his skills and explain what is different, because there's actually a much bigger difference with Rocket. The most notable change, I've discussed it before, is his 5th skill. Crazy AoE, but more importantly the buffs. He's got a crazy buff, all attack, all defense, all speed, which means overdrive is better than Power of Angry Hulk most of the time. But he also gives himself 6 seconds of immunity. So with 6 seconds of immunity, kind of like Shuri, you can start with his 5th skill and then just rush through or kind of slowly go through his other skills without worrying about taking damage unless you're facing someone with penetration. So a skill rotation that you could use for Rocket is basically 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. I end with the 4 because you start with the 5 and with the 4. Because the 4th skill has a long iframe, so you can kind of wait out the last second or 2 seconds of the skill cooldown on the 5th skill, but it's a fairly short cooldown. It's only 7.5 seconds at max, because it's 15 right now, so you only have a 1.5 seconds from when your immunity disappears to when you can use it again, so it's really not a long time to stall. Additionally, on top of his 4th skill iframe, he's got additional iframes. He has an iframe on his 1st skill, which is long, and he also has a guard hit that triggers from his passive whenever you use his 2nd skill, and it's a guard hit of 5 hits for 3 seconds. So you have so many ways of protecting Rocket that it's just really hard to die with him if you're careful. His 3rd skill is still not very good, but it's got a nice 3-second paralyze for Shadowland, so it does have some crowd control effects. but it's really all about the damage. He gets a huge bump as well. The only build difference I would say between him and Star-Lord is that you need to give him guard break immunity. I think that's a really important one because of the fewer iframes, because of the fact that his 5th skill, he just opens up and he stands there and he shoots around. You don't want to interrupt that. You don't want to lose the damage. So definitely hit him up with the guard break immunity on the obelisk. But for him, I would go kind of full damage. I think invincibility plus a 6-second immunity just kind of seems too clunky. The bigger challenge here with comparing the gameplay between uniforms is that he gives himself an additional 25% all attack with this uniform. So unfortunately, with this uniform right now, he's rocking 22,700 energy attack, but when I equip this old uniform, he drops down to 17,900. So that's just too big of a number for me. I couldn't justify or try to compare a uniform that's 4,000 energy attack less than the other one. So I devised a strategy. When we're comparing the new uniform, we will use Rocket solo. When we are comparing the old uniform, which is the one he has equipped now from Guardians of the Galaxy 2, this one right here that's advanced, I will switch and I will use Star-Lord's leadership. Star-Lord's leadership plus Rocket puts him at 22,500 energy attack, which is just 200 energy attack off of his new uniform when he is not using his leadership. So that's how we're going to compare it. So let's jump into that same comparison with how fast can I kill a single character. We're first going to do Rocket Raccoon with his new uniform, and it's pretty blazing. It's pretty John Blaze. He goes, or Johnny Blaze rather, he goes very, very fast, like Star-Lord, like his Guardians of the Galaxy counterpart. So we're going to open up with the 5 here and rock that damage, and almost kills War Machine in one shot. There. So that was about 6.5 seconds. It just ticked down to 7. I would call that 6 seconds. You can call it 6.5 seconds, but it's extremely fast. Falcon got out of it because he iframes, but War Machine took the majority of that punishment, and he basically disintegrated because of it. Now we're going to use we got to go back and change it. We're going to use the same team up here. We're going to switch it over so that Star-Lord's in the lead. We're going to have to use Star-Lord on the mission, so whatever time we get, I didn't equip it, I did equip it, I didn't equip it. Whatever time we get for this next one, we're going to deduct 1 second off of it, because we take about 1 second to switch from Star-Lord over to Rocket. We also have the 5% attack speed, movement speed bonus. Don't think that's going to affect the damage much. It's only 5% attack speed, so let's not read too much into it. There's also a 3% all attack bonus for having multiple characters in the party, but I don't worry too much about that. So we're going to open again with the 5th skill now, move on into the 4th skill. We're just going to spam skills here. We're looking for War Machine. We don't want to die either. And there he go. He's dead. So that was 12 seconds. Could have been, technically 11 seconds. Could have been a little bit faster if we had gotten the skills to land on War Machine, and if he hadn't moved to the bottom of the screen and we had to kind of chase him down. But I don't imagine that being faster than 10 seconds. So it's not quite as insane as the Star-Lord comparison. It's about, I'd say it's about half as fast or twice as fast for the new uniform. But it's definitely much bigger AoE damage. You can see Falcon in this situation didn't iframe and he's almost untouched. He took barely any damage, but that huge area of effect damage on Rocket's new 5th skill, that huge explosion, kind of like Winter Soldier, really makes him much better for grouped fights in something like Alliance Conquest, or getting rid of lots of mobs in Extreme Alliance Battle, or clones if you're fighting someone who summons them, or in a Shadowlands stage. So that is my breakdown for the 2 new uniforms for the 2 guys that needed bigger guns. I think they got an adequate equipment upgrade from the last uniform to this one, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. Do you think that Star-Lord and Rocket were done justice? Let me know down in the comments below. Subscribe if you enjoy the content and you want to support me. Hit the bell if you don't want to miss any of my content. And of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.